Hey MVPs, Rico Notes here. Going to talk to you guys about Oregon and their win total for 2024. You see it here. The books have it at 10.5. If they get over 10.5, you're getting plus 100 money. So that means it's a value bet at that point. And then you got the under, and it's a favorite here at minus 122. First thing I'm going to tell you is I would be taking the over on Oregon at plus 100. That feels like a complete lock, a great value for what you're doing. I'm here. Oregon, give me the over. It's plus 100, so I'm going to make it purple, right? But I would do this thing for 2 units. I would seriously go out and double my money. It feels like Oregon is slated to be great this year. They've done everything right. I'll talk about it at length. But there's just no way that you look at Oregon and you think, man, they're going to lose these games. Going into next season, they're beating Idaho, Boise State, at Oregon State. Doesn't matter. Get 2 weeks to prepare for UCLA. Michigan State, Ohio State back-to-back looks tough, but I don't expect them to beat Ohio State. So I have them losing that game. I have them winning at Purdue on the road, losing or beating Illinois, beating Michigan in the big house. I just think Michigan's going to have a down year. Maryland, at Wisconsin, and then Washington. Now, here's the thing. Washington's going to have a down year as well, and you got 2 weeks to prepare for that. I really, really like Oregon going into next year. Looking at their team, when you look at their wide receivers are amazing. Evan Stewart just came in from Texas A&M. This feels like the third best wide receiver on the team, and a lot of people say he's the best, and they talk about how great he is, and it's only recruiting websites really gassing that up. He's a smaller wide receiver, but Trayshawn Holden, the Alabama transfer, this is a young man who had 6 touchdowns at Alabama and still transferred. It wasn't like he was not playing. He's just a good player. Okay, Tez Johnson, just a stud, a ton of stats from all 3 of these guys. And then you have Gary Bryant Jr. down here, the USC transfer. I think 4 wide receivers, all worth talking about, all very good. Offensive line, impressive. The fact that you get Bedford to leave, I believe, where was he at? Indiana, and he's huge. And Bedford shows up. Cornelius here was a transfer last year from Rhode Island. He's a stud. They're all starters. I mean, it's just, there's no weak points to this team. Tight ends, not household names, but they're very experienced in senior Latin. Quarterback, Dylan Gabriel's an upgrade at quarterback, if you ask me. I believe Dylan Gabriel's a stud. I believe he takes care of the ball. He can do everything right. You can go look at the stats, but watch the tape. He's great. I love it. James Jordan is the best running back that wasn't starting at a team last year. I believe James Jordan is probably – did I just say James Jordan? I meant Jordan James. Jordan always comes first. That's the way you remember that. Jordan James is the truth, man. He's so good. That is not a like, if you don't know college football and you think you know all the star players and you don't consider any of the starters in your top 10 coming back, like they have a top 20 running back list. And they'll do a top 20 running back list, and they'll just do all the top 20 dudes who are on recruiting websites, the top 20 guys that, you know, have the most returning yards and all this stuff. Bro, Jordan James is a top 20 running back in the country. He is a top 10 talent. Like, he's a problem. And I think he's great. I was very surprised to see Jay Harris transfer in. This is an FCS kid. Stud. It looks great on tape, but he'll be a third-string running back. But don't worry, there's going to be no drop-off. Rico, they lost Bucky Irving. So what? I promise you, the running backs at Oregon can play football. They actually had really good transfers leaving, right? They had really talented players not even there. And there's like 3 more running backs not on the list. I promise you, running back is not a problem over there. Defensive line, Jordan Burch came over from South Carolina last year. Former 4 or 5-star kid. Very good. Like a great player. I don't like Jamari Caldwell. Shout out to him being the defensive tackle here. This is a young man that was just posting all over Instagram and Twitter how much money he's turned down and how much it's going to cost to get him in the portal. I think he's a hired mercenary. I personally don't like him, but I guess he's a big body up front. More power to him. But they don't have any scrubs. They got studs everywhere. You see this Mac linebacker here? The middle linebacker, they call him Mac, and then they got money. This Justin Jacobs here is a transfer from Iowa. That's right. That's an Iowa linebacker. Showed up 2 years ago. So I really like the talent and the studs they have on the Oregon defense. I really like the talent they have on this team. And the only concern is their secondary. Do you see all that yellow in their secondary? They are just grabbing anyone they can from the transfer portal. And I'm telling you, they're grabbing all the wrong guys. They're not grabbing the right length of guys. Like all their corners are 5'10", 5'11" corners that they're signing from the transfer portal, and they don't really move me. I see Cam Alexander there, and the websites will tell you he's a 4-star kid, he's one of the top corners in the country, all this stuff. And I look at Cam Alexander, I watched the tape. Where were you guys ranking him like this when he transferred from Sam Houston to UTSA? There was no such transfers like there was no rankings like this. It's Cam Alexander, bro. They just let it go. You know, so it kind of bugs me that they do stuff like this. At the same time, he did have a lot of passes deflected, a shit ton. So he breaks on the ball, not too many picks, whatever. Kobe Savage coming over from Kansas State. Cool, man. He's good, but he's small. Jabbar Muhammad, same thing. These are guys who just played well, but they don't quite have the length of the corners they just lost. Like Kyrie Jackson, 6'3". They don't have that. So there's a matchup thing there. The other DB there, Nico Reed, Colorado transfer from a couple years ago. Not a bad player. They just keep signing more players because they know he should not be starting. He should not be in the starting lineup, although he was one of the better young corners at Colorado before Coach Prime took over, and they ran him out of there, and he came over here. Now, why did he come to Oregon? Well, it was because Demetrius Martin, and I want to get this out there right now. Coach Meat, that's what they call him, no Diddy. Coach Meat, Demetrius Martin is a very good coach, but he already left. He's not at the school anymore. So all the DBs he used to coach and all the guys he developed, they're not there anymore. He left to Michigan State, his alma mater, and he's on the Michigan State staff, and you know how excited I am about Michigan State. So when you lose your DB coach, and a co-defensive coordinator, like that's just the way it goes sometimes. And so I'm more concerned with Oregon having to replace certain coaches, not just players, right? Now, I want to tell you, give me a second here. I'm going to pull something up for Oregon. Give me a second. And it's not just me talking about Chris Hampton. Who's the other guy? The NFL guy, Tosh. So you got Tosh and Chris Hampton. If you don't know who they are, I'll break it down for you. I just wanted to get his first name right. Tosh. I can't say his last name, bro. He's an NFL guy. He's a defense coordinator. So they're doing co-defensive coordinator this upcoming season at Oregon. And that's the only concern is their secondary. And they got Chris Hampton. Let me think about Chris Hampton for a second here. Chris Hampton has been at Oregon, I think, 2 years now. He was a safeties coach, secondary coach. But now he's all by himself. Now that Demetrius Martin left, it's Chris Hampton's show. Before he was the secondary coach at Oregon, he was the defensive coordinator at Tulane. Remember when they beat USC? Right after they beat USC, he got hired. So you're the defensive coordinator at Tulane. Before that, I think he was at McNeese State. He's somewhere right there in the South, Louisiana all day long. Like he's always been around there. And now he's at Oregon. And I don't want to be rude, but I feel like he's a good coach. I just feel like he doesn't know how to recruit at the upper echelon. Like the guys he's signing aren't the elite of the elite when it comes to talent. Look, man, I don't give a shit. Like you guys can watch recruiting websites and they're going to rank all these guys really high. Jabbar Muhammad's amazing. Yeah, Cam Alexander's amazing. Like, and they're going to go, yeah, we got top 5 DB. And it's just like, man, go turn on the tape and stop believing the recruiting websites for 1 second and go watch it. And then ask yourself, is that the best corner in the portal? Is that the best available talent that you can find? And I don't believe it is. I don't. These are 5'10", 5'11" corners, and they don't match up physically. Like they just don't. I think A&M has signed better corners. I think there's other teams out there who are evaluating talent differently. And when you're a small school guy and you find diamonds in the rough and you recruit a certain way, that's all you go and sign. So you go and get Cam Alexander from Houston or from that Louisiana, Houston area. That's where you're finding all the talent that you're used to recruiting. And you try to make sense of it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to get those guys. Like me, right? I sit around, I look for diamonds in the rough all the time. I look for guys who are hidden gems everywhere. It's all the tape I put together. Hey, who's my hidden gem for this, that, and the other? It doesn't mean these guys should be playing in the SEC or be first-round draft picks. I'm just used to looking on the outskirts for my hidden talent. And I find them. And I'm rocking with them. But when you're at Oregon, You don't have to check the outskirts for hidden talent. You shouldn't have to do that. You can recruit nationally, and you can get the best players. And when you start seeing them sign 5, 6 different guys to one position group, that means they don't like their entire position group. That means they already looked at that room and said, we don't have enough, or we're not good enough to get to the next year. We're not good enough to compete next year with the guys we have. We need to bring in 5 guys. Like, that's wild, man. That's absolutely wild. They brought in 1 wide receiver, but 5 defensive backs. They love the way they're evaluating wide receivers. They love what they got in the recruiting classes. Defensive backs, they just keep looking around and go, man, we're missing on every athlete and every DB we sign. And so, for me, it's just a little lackluster. It's a little underwhelming. So what I'd say is at the upper echelon, right, the elite of the elite, I think Oregon's secondary is missing. The elite of the elite. I think they're missing the very best players. I think they're getting good players, hidden gems, shit like this, but that's not what you want to do when you're lining up against Ohio State's 5 wide receivers. That's not what you want to do when you're in the Big Ten against certain elite teams. But right now, their front 7 super solid. Their offense is great. So I think they're going to score a ton of points, but I also think they're going to allow a ton of points. So if you ever look at their schedule, and any of these teams have a good quarterback, he's going to complete passes and get a ton of yards. So it's scary. Like, I think Oregon State or Michigan State's going to be able to score on them. I think Ohio State will beat them. I really do. Illinois is going to get some yards on them throwing it. Trust. Wisconsin has good receivers. Washington will find a way to throw. Like, there's just going to be some teams that move the ball on them and you didn't expect it, because I believe their defensive backs aren't the upper echelon, and they just aren't. And I know you guys can read every ranking you want in the world, but when I turn on the tape and I take my notes on every player and I turn on the tape and I go down and I don't necessarily give them a grade. I just look at them and I just watch all their tape and I just go, oh no, that guy's not playing on Sundays, or that guy can't compete on Saturdays in this league. I feel that way about some of these players. I feel that way, and I think Oregon feels that way about some of these players. That's why they keep signing more players for the position. They just keep signing more. Hey, man, we'll take that one. We'll take that one. Like, they signed a bunch of corners, and then Muhammad comes available, and they're like, we still need one. We still need him. And, yeah, you're not going to turn around a guy that makes your team better, but you're still finding starters in the transfer portal. At an elite school like this, I mean, it's not Caleb Downs, bro. It's not Ingben. And that's who I'm comparing you to. Is like, who are you signing? Because you're not signing the guys that these other teams are signing. Now, they're going to beat 99% of the teams on their roster. So, once again, I believe in the over. I believe in that plus 100. I think they get there. So, it feels like good money to double your money. Do what you believe in. But I study transfer portal and coaching staffs a little more than anyone else in the world. So, when I look at your roster and I look how it's impacted it, I say, oh, man, they're going to miss Demetrius Martin. And Michigan State's going to love having Demetrius Martin. That's a stud. So, shout out to Coach Meat. Shout out to whatever Hampton's going to do for Oregon. But it looks, yeah, they're going to score a lot of points, y'all. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows.